This is Sean Pryor from the Confused Breakfast Podcast and the band Dream Thief. You are listening to Breakdowns for Breakfast.
Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast. I'm your host, Danger, and joining me is a fellow that cannot properly break down an album without your co-host, Monster. Say hi, Monster.
Hello. Good morning, Danger. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well because joining us, we have a very, very special guest, the man in charge of the DFT Dungeon on YouTube, Mr. Daniel Terry. What's up, man? Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey, not too much. I like sitting down. I like eating breakfast. I like breakdowns. Like I kind of just wandered in here, and so I appreciate you guys taking me in off the street and feeding me with some musical knowledge.
Yeah, I'm serving things up on a silver platter tonight.
I feel like
it's Monster. You get to eat them.
Okay. Starting off weird. I think you brought a great album for the format of this show, though, as far as like breakdowns go. That's, I think you picked a good one.
Yeah. A lot of breakdowns in this record for sure.
So on this episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast, we're going to be talking about Zayo's album, The Funeral of God, that was released July 13th, 2004 in the US, but July 12th through Roadrunner in Europe and Asia. Now, whenever we have a guest come on, we always ask them to pick an album. Why did you pick this album?
So I picked The Funeral of God because I realized, number one, that Zayo is not everybody's cup of tea. Zayo's the kind of band, and I'm sure we'll get into this, a lot of people hear Zayo's vocals for the first time and they're like, all right, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like almost immediately. And The Funeral of God by Zayo was the band's, I think, probably their most big budget release. And it's the album that I feel like most people remember Zayo remember that album. This was the first album where they had a music video. And so I just figured if these guys on this podcast are not familiar with Zayo's material, Funeral of God's the best place to start.
Now, would you consider Zayo like your favorite band, or is this like, okay, cool.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
And why do you identify with them so much? Why is it your favorite band?
Zayo kind of rewrote my brain as far as like what I enjoyed about music. So like I started off, when I was in high school, I started off listening to stuff like Incubus and in Linkin Park, and
now we're talking
like all this stuff. Yeah, this stuff that you hear on the radio, new metal, right? Shout out to the Roach Coach podcast, right? Like new metal. All of us metal guys out there. We all started off listening to new metal, and if we didn't, we're lying, right? Or we're like over 70, and Iron Maiden is the best band ever. Which I'm not denying that Iron Maiden might be the best band ever. But
Watch out.
I know. I'm playing with fire over here. But no, so like I was really into new metal, and so like I like sort of screamy stuff like Slipknot and Mudvayne. I got really into Il Niño for a while. And so like I was kind of just flirting with the whole screaming thing, and I had heard Zayo and Living Sacrifice because like when I got into high school and I started going to like youth groups and stuff, Christian rock was probably at its apex in the early 2000s, like kind of right before metalcore took off. And so if you were into screamy music, there weren't really a lot of options. You either had to go straight into what metalcore was that year, or you had to stick in this world where like Skillet is the heaviest band that you can listen to, right? So it's either Skillet or Living Sacrifice. We didn't have Demon Hunter yet, you know what I mean, to kind of bridge the gap there. So Zayo, I was not a fan of the first time I'd heard them. I was like, oh man, this dude's vocals are weird. You can't understand anything he's saying. There's no singing, there's no melodic bits, in their music, and then I was in a relationship with this girl that I went to youth group with, and we broke up over the phone one night, and I loaded up the heaviest song that I'd had downloaded on my computer, and it was Ravage Ritual by Zayo. And it's the one, it's off of Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest, and it opens up with a clip from a movie I think the movie's called The Final Prophecy, and it's like, I remember the first war, the way the sky burned, the faces of angels destroyed.
I saw a third of heaven's legion vanished, and the creation fell. I stood with my brothers.
And then like Zayo kind of comes in, and that moment when I heard, Dan's growling vocals come in, and just how heavy that song was, like the guitar sounded like razor blades. I mean, it was the most unhinged thing I'd ever heard. And it was the only thing at the time that I felt like could match the same intensity that I was feeling. So as a high schooler, I was like, this is my music now. You know what I mean? Like this band belongs to me now, and that's kind of stuck with me. I've been a massive fan ever since then, and their music, I actually think that a lot of Zayo's earlier material, while I'm very nostalgic for it, I don't think it even holds a candle to the band's like newest releases. I think that they're 10 times the band now than they were then. So that's why they've remained my favorite all this time, because it's not just a nostalgia thing. I'm still an active fan.
Well, and that's good that you're still an active fan. It's not just like, I like their early stuff, because you didn't bring us an early album. So, cool.
Right. Yeah. I got right smack dab in the middle. Yep.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to ask you to come and hang out with us was because I knew that your coming up in music was very similar to Danger and I, because we were also late 90s, early 2000s. Around here in North Carolina, we had sort of a plethora of Christian music venues. So we used to get shows all the time, and Danger and I were both, I was playing some of these shows, and me and Danger were going to a bunch of these shows.
And we didn't know each other. We just,
we were
in the last year or so. Actually, just since starting this, we found out that we went to a bunch of the same shows.
But it was nothing for over the course of a year at some of these places, you would see Pillar and Living Sacrifice and Project 86 and Stavesaker and like all of these bands. And so it was like super cool to have that. Like you said, it was sort of kind of at the apex of sort of the diversity of Christian rock and metal there for a little while. Yeah. And so because of that, Zayo was always like on my radar, and pretty big Living Sacrifice fan. I've always really enjoyed them, seen them live a few times. And yeah, I think the biggest turnoff was the vocals originally, because I don't know, like the first time I remember just in the course of listening to stuff with me and my buddies and writing songs and stuff, it was like, I know I heard Zayo in the mix of those things. Sure. And just never latched onto them. So when you said Zayo, my first thought was, oh no, I hope this dude's cool, because I might piss him off. And then it was like, after I listened to it, I was like, okay, that's not bad. And I think the thing about the vocals, while yes, that was sort of like not a hurdle I couldn't overcome, but the vocals never quite click for me. Mm-hmm. They're not to like the degree that I was expecting them to be, that was going to be like super off-putting and like I wasn't going to be able to get past them. There's a lot of cool stuff on this record, and I've kind of enjoyed like doing this deep dive into it for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing when you said you wanted to do a Zayo album, because Zayo was one of those bands that just kind of was always around. And I first came across Zayo on their 1998 release, the Where the Blood and Fire Bring Rest, that you had referenced. And so that was what Zayo was to me. That's what Zayo has always been in my head, is that. And, growing up in the Christian music scene, it was, this was the big one. This was the heavy one. This was the loud one. This was the one that my parents couldn't get mad at me for listening to, but they didn't like me listening to it because they didn't like listening to it.
Right.
And, even though I tried to be respectful with the volume of my stereo, but still, it was a thing where Zayo was played on a fairly regular basis, just because there was a whole thing where, Tooth and Nail was putting out albums, and Tooth and Nail was the safe choice for us to go to get albums from. And, later in life, as Monster and I have talked about, Tooth and Nail was not a Christian label or signing Christian acts all the time. But, you know, as a kid, it was like, it's fine. It's Tooth and Nail. It's okay. But anyway, yeah. So, Zao was a thing that we would, you know, my youth group, we had a stereo that we could throw in CDs wherever we wanted. And so, you know, Zao was the one that when we put it on, you know, everybody kind of came out from their corners and they were like, what is this? And, you know, neat. I like this.
Everybody with their tight pants and stud belts doing karate in the middle of the youth room.
Let's go. Yeah.
but it was a youth group. So it was, Jinkos and hugs, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
It was a youth group in 1998. And so
take a knee to the nose for the Lord.
Right. Open up this pit with forgiveness. So a couple things about this album that kind of threw me off because I had not listened to Zao in quite a while. And part of it is the vocals and, you know, and I'll talk about that because I do love screamy stuff. I love a screamer. I love a growl, but at my age, at 40, get tired quite faster. It wears on me a bit, but I kind of had to start looking at this different after listening to it because I listened to it and I was like, okay, this is Zao, but it sounds like what I feel like it would. But then I started reading into it, and it's a concept album, which I was not expecting. And we did a concept album on the show before, actually, with another guest. We did Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar, and didn't realize that was a concept album either. And and the guest we had actually told us that it was the last part, even though it was the first CD that was really the first album that was released in the concept of a 3-part series. But anyway. So I kind of had to start looking at this one differently, going, okay, so these songs, just like that, this song may not stand well on its own, but without the one before or after, but that one, the Antichrist Superstar had, what was it, like 16 tracks? This does not have 16 tracks. So it's almost like every part of the concept album matters. And I had to take that into account with a lot of where I was looking at this one.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting way to kind of go about this because I couldn't really grade this one the same as I have plenty of other albums. And it was an interesting thing because I enjoyed it up to a certain point, then I definitely got the fatigue, but I don't know. It was just a very interesting thing for me. You're going to give me a concept album that is really short and everything's got to matter.
Yeah.
It was kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. And as far as the concept record part of it goes, getting ready for the show, we listen to these albums 4, 5, 6, 7 times, however many times we can cram it in. But because of the vocal style, it's kind of hard to pick up on too many of the lyrics. So, what the overarching story is here, other than just by the name of the album and the track titles, I think I kind of get the gist. But, that was always one of my arguments that my parents used to make was like, if they're a Christian band, but you can't understand anything they're saying, it's like, I know, Mom, I know, I get it, but still. But yeah, so yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that was a concept record until you just said that. So neat.
Yeah. I have a rundown of the concept. I don't know if you know the concept yourself.
I do. I know. Okay. I know the brass tacks of it, basically.
Okay.
So what are we doing here?
Well, I've got that it's narrating the apocalyptic story in which God, fed up with the path chosen by humanity, decides to disappear, leaving humanity to its fate. The world falls into a state of war and self-destruction, and then man soon reverts to a state in which he waits for God to return. And and I thought it was an interesting thing reading that because it's not that God did return. It's not that things got happy again. It's not that things were okay. It was just, it's kind of left in this, like, what are we doing?
That doesn't sound like something Hillsong would write a song about, does it?
Well, it's interesting.
No, it does not.
We'll get into this about what Zao's status was as a Christian band at that time, because that's a big point of contention for a lot of people.
Well, I tried to do some digging into that, and I couldn't really pinpoint where they were at this point. I feel like I got to where certain members were and certain members weren't.
Yeah, basically. So at the expense of, or at the risk of speaking for other people, right? I know that basically, Zao started off their first two albums, All Else Failed and The Splinter Sharps, The Birth of Separation. They didn't sound like they sound now. They had a different vocalist. They had a guy named Sean Jonas as their vocalist. And he had more of like just more of a regular hard. If you guys listen to the old like spirit-filled hardcore bands like Focused and Unashamed or Overcome, like those sort of bands, and like it to give a more like mainstream example, they reminded me kind of like something like Earth Crisis, or Snapcase, like that type of hardcore, right? And so they were very Christian, very spiritual. They'd get up on stage and like preach to people and stuff before shows, which I'm sure like hardcore vegan dudes probably really loved, right? But anyway, they did that, and then pretty much everybody in the band quit except for the drummer in 1997, I think. And it's 97, or I think it's 97 that they all quit. And so the drummer reformed the band. And he got a new guitarist named Russ Cogdell, and Brett Detter from the Juliana Theory.
We talked about him
guitar in Zayo, on the Blood and Fire record, and then of course Daniel Wyant, the voice of Zayo. And so they returned as this like carcassy style like metal band like that we know them as now, right? And their first record as that lineup, Blood and Fire, very spiritual, very Christian. Pretty much everything after that, Zayo wasn't really a Christian band. By their own sort of like, they were in the scene, they were signed to Solid State, they had gotten their start as a Christian band. But, if you look at like Liberate, the lyrics on that, there's really not a lot of references to Christianity. You go into Self-Titled, and they're just off doing their own thing. It's music that might be thematically appropriate for Christians, but it's not necessarily like evangelical in the way that people usually associate with Christian metal bands, right? And so Funeral of God is interesting because this is really the first time since Blood and Fire that we're talking about spiritual concepts, which is what I think made Funeral of God very interesting at the time.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that where they got their start in that, but then they'd never really been a Christian band. I know that there are members who have identified as Christians, but then there's other ones that have just never said that they were or they weren't. And it just kind of was an assumed thing, which I think is something that kind of worked to the advantage of some of the guys, some of the bands that came around in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, because it just was a thing where you were established and you just were accepted as this thing. Now, one of the things that I think was interesting about Zayo, and this is where one of the places where I remember them from, was I had a cassette tape, and I tried to find this cassette tape. I tried to find it online somewhere or whatever, and I couldn't. It was actually a split cassette tape with Zayo and Argyle Park 2, which was the reforming of Argyle Park. Yeah, I know. I bought it because I liked Argyle Park, and I was like, this is going to be cool. And I have no idea if I listened to the entire thing, A or B side, and I have no idea what happened to it. But I think it's just a neat thing because an interesting thing that Zayo just kind of was able to jump on board with all these other acts, kind of in the same realm and kind of float freely throughout. And it always worked.
Like, that tape is cool and all, but I had this CD that was like something extreme, and it had the new hit singles by PAX 217 and Beanbag and Building 429. Now, that's heavy music right there.
Actually, what I'll say about Beanbag that surprised the hell out of me is I listened to their album and thought, this is terrible. I don't ever want to listen to it again. And then one of those Christian clubs that you were mentioning a minute ago, Monster, Beanbag played, and I was completely blown away by just how damn heavy they were.
Guess what?
And I saw them live. I never listened to their recorded stuff again, but I saw them live many times after that.
Guess what? I was there.
I don't doubt that one bit.
I was totally there. And I saw PAX 217. I feel like they might have been together, but I don't remember. It was a different lifetime.
I remember PAX 217. That band was they were like, guys, there's no Christian bands that have that 311 vibe, so let's try it and see how far we can get.
That's why I loved them.
PAX 217 was the epitome of, we have 311 at home, like.
Matter of fact, the drummer in the band I was in at the time, he didn't tell me who it was. He said, "Hey, check this out. Tell me what you think." And he started playing it, and I was like, "Is this a new 311 song?" And he was like, "Nah, dude, just keep listening." And I was like, this is really cool. He's like, "Yeah, they're called PAX 217. They're like Christian 311. And I was like,
the dude of every band. Yeah.
And together their ages are the if you add 3 and 11 together, that's how old they are.
There you go.
Because
The drummer was 13. Yeah.
Yeah. I know he was like 13, 14. Yeah. But in that movie, Extreme Days that they were in was a interesting one. Anyway, back to Zayo.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Do you want to run through the people in the band, or do you have who they are? Do you want to talk about it? You pronounced the lead singer's last name in a way that I did not pronounce it in my head. So,
yeah. Well, I called him Dan Wyant for years, but it's actually Wyant. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dan a couple years ago on my old podcast, and I had to make sure I had got the pronunciation right, before I did it. But yeah, so Zayo on this album was Dan Wyant on lead vocals, Scott Mellinger on guitar and clean vocals, which is a different thing for Zayo at the time. Russ Cogdell on guitar, Stephen Peck on drums. It's his only appearance in Zayo, is this one album. And then the same with their bassist, Sean Koshik, who I only saw play with the band one time. I saw them play right after Funeral. They came here to St. Louis, and right after Funeral came out, and just absolutely played in 110 degrees at the Creepy Crawl. It was wild. Anyway, yeah, so that was Zayo's lineup for Funeral of God, a very unique lineup only to this album.
How many times have you seen Zayo live?
Oh gosh. So the first time I saw them hold on. So yeah, 2003 I think was the first time. And Dan wasn't even singing. They had Josh Ashworth from Society's Finest singing for them at the time, which is kind of he did a really, really great job. But it was my first time seeing Zayo. I wanted to see Dan, right? So 1, 2. So I saw him 3 times when I was in high school, and then I saw him at Cornerstone, so 4 times, and then I've seen them probably 8 or 9 times in the last 10 years.
Cool.
I just recently saw them in St. Louis back in August. And that was I'm such an old man, though. I was like, man, I felt like there was 400 opening bands. And I was like, I just want to watch Zayo. You know what I mean? I'm getting to 40. I need to be in bed by 9:30. I can't, I just want to see my favorite band play songs, and then I want to leave and go to bed.
No, as a guy who plays in a band currently, I don't want there to be 4 opening bands. I don't want to be part of a 5-band build. I don't.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
No, and Monster and I have gone to several shows together, and it's always how many openers are there? When's the band that we want to see playing and all? And actually, the one of the last episodes that we recorded, it was on the Plot in You, and I was talking about how all the other bands that were playing were way better than, and I was perfectly fine with it, because by the time the headliner went on, we were done, and it was it's still 8:30, 9 o'clock. We're good. We're old. So,
I feel that.
Yeah. The knees don't like shows anymore, and neither does the back. So anyway, but then the producer on this was Eric. I want to say Rachel, but I know it's probably Rochelle. And Eric seemed to just produce a lot of kind of bands within this genre of things, but nobody that really stuck out to me. If you have something different on that, then please let me know.
No, I don't really pay attention to the producer.
Well, and it's funny because actually that was, I don't want to say one of my complaints, but, again, my knowledge of, I never got really in the, weeds with a lot of these bands and this sort of more extreme death metalcore kind of stuff. But I am a big fan of Living Sacrifice, and, I've heard some other bands, Extol and Soul Entombed and stuff. And I felt like the production on this was a little thin. I felt like it could have been, I think it would have hit me harder if it felt bigger. Whenever Living Sacrifice goes into those chugs with the double kick, I mean, you feel it in your chest. And this just doesn't quite have that.
Sure.
No, I agree.
I do too.
There was a couple points where the drums kind of jumped out at me, and I'll point those out.
And again, being somebody that's sort of, I don't want to say expected to dislike this, when, 2-3 songs in, I was pleasantly surprised that it's oh, okay, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be. I think there's some killer riffs. I think the drums do some cool stuff. I like the way the bass is EQ'd in a lot of places, because it has that sort of chunky, it's not distorted, but a little bit rumbly. I like all that. I don't love the vocals, but there's there's more diversity in the vocals than I thought there was going to be. And so that made it a little bit more palatable throughout the record.
Now, there is one more thing about this CD that I do want to point out. There was the art direction of the physical CD. Do you have the physical CD by any chance? There you go. You brought props.
There it is.
Oh, yeah. I got all there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always appreciate it when people bring props, and I'm glad it's not like a pull noodle. It's actually
sure. Yeah, no,
it's applicable.
Yep.
So there was a person that worked on the artwork. It was actually two people that worked on the artwork of this. It was Don and Ryan Clark.
Yep.
Now,
you mean
do you know who?
Yeah.
Yeah. Demon Hunter. Right. Ryan Clark from Demon Hunter, and then also from Training for Utopia before that.
Yep.
And he did stuff with Mark Solomon of Stavesaker. Oh. Yeah. So yeah, cool. I don't know, when I saw that name, I was like, why do I know that name? Yep. Where's that from? So yeah, I just thought that was neat.
One of the weirdest shows that I went to back in those days was Stavesaker, Living Sacrifice, and Project 86.
Yep, that was one that we were both at,
yes,
and I got elbowed by the bass player of Stavesaker during one of the songs, and he apologized to me for the rest of the set, and I was like, dude, it's okay.
Just got really into it.
Yeah. So anyway, you ready to jump into this album? Ready to talk about this thing?
Let's do it.
Are you ready to explain to me why this is your favorite album and not get offended when we don't like certain parts?
Oh, it's not my favorite Zayo album.
Oh, I thought you said it was. I do apologize.
No, favorite band, not my... I don't even think this is Zayo's best album. It might even be my least favorite one. But
now we're talking. This is going to be fun.
I'm not flip-flopping, but I've, because I think Zayo's worst album is better than a lot of bands' best albums. So,
That's
the bias. Yep.
Yeah, if that's your favorite band, then that is the respectful answer. I concur. That's cool.
All right. Track 1, Breath of the Black Muse. Which, let me just start off by saying the titles of a lot of these songs are awesome. I really like the titles of these, especially that track 1. Anyway.
Yeah, it just starts.
Yeah. So, again, I sort of had a preconceived notion of what this was going to sound like. So when the first riff was very much like that Every Time I Die kind of like stinky southern metalcore thing. I was like, okay, I like that riff. And then the vocals, they come in and they are what they are, but they weren't so high in the mix that it was like, jarring. It was just like, okay, here come the vocals. This is how he's going to do his scream. And it's like, it's not so bad. If they would have mixed it to put the vocals too much on top of the music, I think it would have hurt it for me. But no, like it wasn't. The vocals came in. I was like, I don't love it, but that's not nearly as bad as what I had braced myself for.
Yeah, the beginning of this album, the vocals didn't really bother me. Later, I felt like we got more of like Skeletor vocals, and it was like, I'm just kind of done with things at this point. But, here, the first couple of tracks, I'm fine with it. But no, it's a hell of a riff on this one. I really like the riff that was happening here. But you're right, it kicks the door in.
Yeah, it just starts, open your mouth, boy, just to swallow your teeth. I mean, it hits hard, like right off the bat. I'm a Dan's vocals apologist. I love Dan's I prefer this style of metalcore vocal over any other one. So I'm also like a really big fan of bands like Converge, and also like obviously like bands like Haste the Day, or Trenches, if you've heard them. Basically anybody that has that like higher pitched register that we call it like the snarl, or like carcassy, because I'm a huge fan of like old school death metal, and even some of the like more European like melodic death metal stuff, so the Scandinavian melodic death metal stuff, and that's really kind of where this vocal style comes from. Zayo was one of the first bands back in '98 to combine this type of vocal with hardcore metalcore stuff. So I love Dan's vocals, obviously. I have no complaints there. As far as the mix goes, I think this record sounds a little flat in places. It's also weird hearing Zayo be this clean. This is probably their most clean sounding record, but Zayo is not a band that like I think necessarily lends themselves well to a big stage. You know what I mean? With like thousands of people.
Oh, sure.
The Zayo vibe is, a dive, almost like a dive bar, very underground, a lot of sludge in the riffs. And you can hear a lot of that. You can still hear a lot of that sludginess, that stank, that is on Scott's guitar tone. He's very, cause he's really into stuff like Neurosis and like, even like older, like Morbid Angel type stuff. So like you hear those death metal influences, but they're like sort of being mixed with this like sort of, at least for 2004, this like cleaner, crisper production quality. So I don't think that like the guitar, like I don't think the guitar stank is necessarily lost here, but it's a little bit jarring compared to their other releases, which went for a little bit more underground feel. And Dan's vocals, historically, I actually think they are too loud on this record compared to previous records where Dan's vocals were kind of mixed down a little bit, especially their next record that comes after this. I think they do the vocals like perfect.
And it's funny talking about the time frame, because to me, this sounds like 97, 98. When it's 2004, I kind of expect the production to be a little bit, like you said, not so flat, you know.
So you'll have to forgive mine and Monster's ignorance a bit, because this is not our typical album that we put on. But like, I think you're 100% right that just the sound of this, Zayo is not the main stage at a festival, thousands of people. They are the floor show in a dirty basement, like I saw them several times before. And that's the sound of this to me. And now I understand if it's not that to you, but because you listen to way more of it than we have, but I don't know. I still felt like this was, dirty basement floor that probably hasn't been swept in just as long as it's been open.
Very sticky.
Very sticky, right. And since it's a Christian crowd, it's non-alcoholic beer that was spilt. And, if you drink non-alcoholic O'Douls, are you a non-alcoholic?
That's a good question.
It's like that episode of Beavis and Butthead where the cops catch them behind the convenience store. They're drinking and they're like, laughing like they normally do and stuff. And the cops come over and is like, you guys are too young to be drinking, blah, blah, blah. He's like, sir, this is non-alcoholic beer. He's like, y'all boys ain't drunk. Y'all are just stupid.
I tried non-alcoholic beer one time and it was god awful.
It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a sip and the only thing out of my mouth is, why am I doing this? What's the point of this?
Yeah, so gross.
Okay, so back to this song, though.
So
to the point, not really knowing what to expect. So at 140, where it changes and it gets more melodic and you have those like ninth chords on the guitar. I was like, oh, cool, this is kind of neat. And then the clean vocals come in after that. And I was like, I appreciate the clean vocal, but maybe take a second pass on that, because it felt like I get you don't want it to be too clean. You want it to, like you said, feel like a sweaty basement show. Cool. But it just sounded a little bit rough. And I was like, maybe we could. And I think some of the clean vocals coming up later in the record are actually really good. Yeah. But this first dose of it, I was like, I'm glad there's some dynamics here. There's more dynamics than I anticipated, but I'm not sure about that performance.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the clean vocals, and this one especially, are mixed too far back. It's like he was on the other side of the room, not in the next room, as we've talked about him.
Yeah,
on albums
at least he was
but,
in the room.
Yeah, he was in the room, but he was, 10 feet away from the microphone and trying to do clean vocals. And it just, I don't know, it was one of those things, I don't know, I felt the same way. Like, take a second pass, maybe do a second run a little bit closer to the microphone and put the two together, kind of a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, this was different the first time I heard it, because this was not normal for Zayo before this. Clean vocals were not something that was typically part of their tool set. They did it a little bit on their self-titled, a little bit on Pray to Chaos, but like Liberate, not at all. There's like some really, really light clean vocals on Blood and Fire in the background of one song. You could barely even hear it. This is the first time where Zayo was like singing a chorus, which like at the time I remember being a little bit taken aback. Like I was like, ooh, is my favorite band selling out? You know what I mean? Like what is going on? What is going on with these clean vocals? They didn't sound natural to me as a Zayo fan, but this is the first time where Scott actually was like audible, as far as I know anyway. It was audible on a Zayo record as the clean vocalist. And so I would say that, especially on Breath of the Black Muse, it is not his most confident. It's almost like he's not fully committed to it. And it does sound a little bit rough, which is something that over the years he's really improved at. This was literally exactly what it sounds like, the first stab at it.
Right.
Yeah, it was a first take, last take sort of a thing. And that's fine. All right. I really dig the drums towards the end of this song. I didn't get a timestamp on where it happens, but I remember thinking like, holy shit, this is a great drum moment.
So around 225, that I really like that section right there. Because it was giving me big Living Sacrifice vibes. Because you got that double kick and that chug. And that's the first time that the like production kind of hit me. Because I was like, man, this should feel like I'm getting just kicked in the head. And it doesn't quite do it. Like I'm listening with, these big over ear headphones, me and Danger like to wear like, nice, judging from, what I'm talking about.
I know what you're
so
talking
it's like,
about.
Yeah. So I want it to feel like it is just that kick drum is like in my brain and it just doesn't quite do it. And I think if it would have, I would have liked that a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah. Get yourself a pair of heavies. It'll feel that way.
Yeah.
I also think like 2004 though, because I think this thing. I mean, wasn't this thing recorded in at like Tracks East or something? I could be wrong about that, but like I have a lot of records from that time period that were recorded at Tracks East, and I don't have
a note about that.
I feel like I should know that, but anyway, long story short, a lot of metalcore records sounded, I don't know, murky back then. Like, because I'm thinking of like bands like Cyanide Beach. They had a record that I think was brilliant called When Breath Escapes, but it sounds like ass. Like it just doesn't like, you know what I mean? Sounds like you're watching Cyanide Beach play in a basement with no soundproofing and just like concrete floor, like.
And there's a certain level of charm to that for sure.
Sure. I think here it's a disservice though, because they're trying to sound big,
right?
But it's not coming across. We're limited by the engineering, I guess. At this point,
they did good for what they had.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about track 2, The Rising End. In parentheses, the first prophecy. So we're going through the track titles, like leading up to this. I was like, am I going to say in parentheses? I don't know. We're just going to wing it. So there we go. We got that. So anyway, that's a fun intro.
Yeah.
I like the intro on this one.
Another kick-ass riff, man. I love that opening riff.
And then I really, really like what's happening. And then 58 seconds happens and I'm like, oh, this is different. I still like this, but this is different. I like this in a different way,
I like that too because it kind of has that snaky sort of do kind of like guitar riff.
Right.
The only thing I don't like is those sort of like weird pauses where like a lot of stuff drops out and you got the like doo. I don't know. Those felt a little bit clunky to me. Like it didn't feel like, I get that they were trying to do something a little bit like off tempo or whatever, but it doesn't really click.
Part of that's the way they recorded the bass. I think that the way the bass sounds on this record, the way it echoes after every single bass lick, it sounds like it echoes out and makes it sound out of time. It's something it's actually something I didn't notice until I was listening to it today. that I was like, because I was trying to pinpoint, because I was like, okay, what are these guys going to pick apart, about this record? And I was thinking, man, the breakdowns sound a little bit sloshy.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't sound
now that you say that,
totally perfect, but
yeah,
it's that bass ringing out that sort of ruins it, because I've seen this. This is the most popular Zayo song. There's a video for it. It was the first Zayo video, and there's like, because I've seen the band live so many times, and when they play this song, it's very tight. Yeah, they have different basses now, right? So like, it's very tight. It's machine gun precise. Zayo live is a totally different beast, I think, even than they were here at this stage.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think that this song is very iconic. Obviously, the opening riff is incredible. The way when Dan's vocals come in, his lyrics, like knowing his lyrics, really enhances this song because of the way he comes in. You really, once you start actually understanding his lyrics, Dan screams at a slower pace than most screamers scream. So if you're able to like listen to the music in your mind at normal speed, but listen to the slower tempo of the vocals, eventually his voice is going to click with you, and you'll be able to actually understand a lot of what he says better. But it takes a lot of exposure. It's kind of like somebody gives you a beer that tastes like a cigarette butts, right? And then they're like, "Oh, you just gotta try it a bunch of times, and it'll, eventually like." That's kind of what I'm saying. It's a very fanboy thing to say, but it is. It was true for me when I started actually understanding Dan. So the way he comes in slower and casual with this like sort of terrifying intro, and he's just like, bombs rain down like heaven's tears, the earth shall die and disappear, and then he's like, and today, where it like matches right up with like the breakdown. It's perfect. It's a 10 out of 10 like chef's kiss type of moment.
So you're saying that Zayo is basically the IPA of music?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I used to drink IPAs. Back on discography discussion, I could pretty much put away an entire case of a 6-pack of IPAs of Space Dust in like probably, those are like 8%, I think, per bottle.
Once you get used to the pine needle flavor, they're delicious.
Yeah, they're so good, especially if you put in like, I don't drink anymore. I actually haven't drank since 2021. I quit way back then, but I still like talking about it.
IPAs are really good. The best way to enjoy them is if you pour them directly into the sink.
Oh, well, you didn't try the Zayo IPA. Zayo had their own beer.
Did they?
A couple of times. They had Croatoan, which was like not an IPA, but their first one that they had was, I'm trying to remember what it was called. Oh, I don't know why it won't come to me now.
That's so funny. So many bands have like beers and liquors and stuff. 311's got a whole
It was so good though. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, this song's going to tell you whether or not you're going to actually give Zayo a try or not. This is the first song a lot of people heard, and it's like, if you hate everything about this song, you're not going to like Zayo. There's no clean vocals. There's no melodic breaks. This is the real Zayo experience.
Well, that's fine. And what I think is interesting is that a lot of these songs, I like the first half of the song better than the last half. Like this song, I liked this song up until 2 minutes, and then it became heavy metal Primus.
Sure.
So I'm the opposite. Like, I like the opening riff, but it's a little clunky for me. But then right at that 2 minutes where it locks into that very early 2000s metalcore chug, like I was immediately transported back to that time. It's like, this is fun. Like, this is cool. And I appreciate you sticking up for the singer, but there's no screaming here. We can just like lock into the music right there. I dug that part. I wasn't hearing Primus, but I don't know. Like,
it felt very Primacy to me. I don't know. It felt like Les Claypool had a strong influence on things at that point at 2 minutes. And I don't think it lasted the rest of the time, because I do love the way the drums sound coming out of the bridge.
Well, and then I was going to say the outro too has those like ear, like those weird dissonant like metalcore guitars that, were real cool for about 6 years, and then everybody stopped.
Hey man, I think they're still cool. If I started a band now and did it now, it would be throwback and everybody would love it. Yeah.
Right. It would be like nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so track 3, The Last Revelation, in parentheses, The Last Prophecy. There's no more parentheses, listener. No more parentheses. Everything is out in the open here. So anyway, this is obviously a pairing of the last track. But the thing is that I didn't feel like this one went with the last track because it's got a fun riff, but it's almost more of a southern rock riff. And I didn't feel any of that in track 2.
No, just the lyrics are related. So unlike a lot of concept albums, these songs were, or maybe it is like a lot of concept albums now I think about it. The songs were kind of written here and there over the course of so Zayo had broken up prior to Funeral of God. Like they put out an album called Pray to Chaos, and then they re-recorded their first album, All Else Failed, which is like really weird because nobody that was in that band other than the drummer was on the original recording. So the fact that they had the new band re-record the album was weird. I mean, I like hearing some of those songs with like Dan singing them, but like the novelty wears off almost immediately,
Right.
It's not even close to how good the original All Else Failed was. It's a totally different vibe. But no, they had sort of, they went away, they broke up, and then they came back through a crazy series of events that you can watch on their DVD. But whenever they came back, Dan did not return. And so they needed a new singer. So they reached out to this dude named Josh Ashworth from Society's Finest. And he sounds, I don't if you guys have ever heard that band or not, his vocals sound almost identical to Dan's vocals. Like it was like a straight, like a lateral move. You know what I mean? And so they put out 2 demo songs with Josh Ashworth. One was called like She's Not Leaving, She's Not Breathing. And the other one was called 21st Century Thriller. And they have totally different lyrics, but the music is The Rising End. 21st Century Thriller is The Rising End. And She's Not Leaving, She's Not Breathing is Praise the War Machine. So these songs had sort of been written sort of piecemeal leading up to this album. And then so when Dan returned to the band, that's where he pens the whole concept and names the songs and puts them all together. That's why this record, I feel like, has so much variety in it, because it wasn't all written in the same time period. It's really sort of ideas piecemealed together from the last several years, with the band being in kind of this unknown state.
So it's a hodgepodge concept.
Well, no, the concept is rock solid. The lyrics and the names, all rock solid. The music, though, is almost not even related.
Yeah,
except for maybe the last 2 tracks.
No, it's I mean, there's been plenty of times we've talked about like this doesn't sound like it needs to go together, and I think they do a good job of meshing those things together here.
Yeah,
but by a hodgepodge concept is the names of the songs and the lyrics within the songs all work together, but then like the music is from different places and all, and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
It's like if it didn't work great in this place, let's reuse it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I think they do a good job of doing little things, because I agree there's a lot more diversity on this album than I anticipated. But they do like little things that kind of connect them to other songs, so nothing feels like super out of place or anything. And speaking of which, the clean vocals make another appearance here, and these to me sound really good. Like they're a little quieter in the mix, and it's not really like it's almost just like a background addition. Like it's almost like another guitar layer or something. It just adds a little like flavor to the I'm going to call it the chorus. I don't know if that's exactly.
It's a chorus. I think you can call it a chorus.
But so I liked that there. I thought that was a nice, give it a little more melody there.
What I felt like we saw for the first time here that we do see in other places is at 225. I feel like this just becomes a Zayo jam session. And I kind of feel like there's certain places where throughout this album where they stick in these jam sessions just to kind of get the length of the song. And I didn't mind it at first, but after, as the album went on, I was like, why are we doing this here? Like, why is this continuing on? We don't have to make a 4-minute long song. It's okay if you want to make a 2.5, 3-minute song. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, with this as aggressive as some of the songs are, I think keeping them a little tighter and shorter works better. Because, like, yeah, the last minute or so of this song is sort of a mix of just, like, chords and drum fills. And some of it's cool, but I do think it kind of drags there at the last, quarter of the song or so.
Yeah, I do love what the drums do at 3. Well, I do love what the drums do at 3 minutes. It is cool there. But after that, I will agree that it just kind of drags and it's just not needed. All right, track 4, the last song from Zion. So I definitely felt that the concept throughout the first couple songs, especially like I've got notes on kind of what the songs are within the concept, within the overall story. But where were you with the concept, especially on this song? Because I feel like this is where the concept becomes more emotional within the entire lineup of the album. Because I feel like this is the emotional center of the album. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is like this is supposed to be God's final message, to mankind, where he's like, I'm going down, or I'm laying down to go to sleep forever. One of my favorite lines is when he's like, I do not cower before your blades, because this is what your black hearts crave. And like, oh God, the lyrics are so, like, Dan
that's a cool line. I noticed it took me 5 listens to actually understand what he was saying, but once I got it, I was like, that's a cool line.
Yeah.
My screaming ear just isn't with it. I have to read the lyrics. It's not what it was when I was in my 20s. I thought it was cool. I do know the line you're talking about, and I do feel like all throughout this album there are just lines, 2-3 lines to, paired up. I've got a couple notes about them as we go on that I do think it does really stick out. So from this point forward in the album, it's either the music is jumping out or the vocals or what he is saying is jumping out. Like I don't know. The first 3 tracks I thought were great, but then from this point forward, it's rather spotty for me. So on this one, I do like the melody of this song. Not his vocal rhythm, but I do like what the music is doing behind his vocals. I think it's really cool. I actually wish that was something I do feel like the melody of this one is something that could be used somewhere else and also work there, but it works here as well.
I was going to say, I think musically this one, I really like, the intro takes a second to get there, but when it like kicks into the verse. I like it better like once the verse actually kicks in. Because that rhythm and that kind of riff was giving me almost like just old school heavy metal vibes. The guitar specifically gives me a little bit more of that like New England metalcore, like Kill Switch, Shadows Fall kind of stuff. Because you've got the chug, but then you got those little high, clean, clear notes mixed in with the melody there. But yeah, the vocals on this one kind of, I like some of the lyrics, but I feel like the monotone flavor of the screaming there sort of takes away from how much melody we've got going on with the guitar riff and everything else. The vocals hurt this one for me because I actually genuinely really enjoy the music on this one.
So I like, I agree this is where the record sort of starts to drag, because like I can see it from their perspective, when they're like doing the sequencing or whatever. This is sort of a breather song, but like I could do without a lot of the beginning of the song, but once you get into like the 3-minute mark and that breakdown, like the last song from Zion, and it goes into that like Norma Jean type like dissonant soaked breakdown. I'm here for that. I love all that stuff. I like it when Zayo is chaotic and in your face. And I don't really, the reason this is one of my least favorite Zayo albums, I don't like Zayo to be overly melodic. And I think that's the two counterpoints whenever we talk about perspective, because I'm the kind of guy that for years wouldn't even listen to stuff that had clean singing in it. You know what I mean? It was all like, is all screaming all the time. You know, if they're not screaming, I'm not listening. If they're not playing a blast beat, I'm not, tapping my feet.
So let me ask you this, a little bit off topic, but how do you feel about a band like The Chariot?
Oh, I love The Chariot.
Oh boy. I can't. That's the only band I've ever heard that I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Like, even something like Dillinger Escape Plan, or like, I Wrestled a Bear Once. They're probably in my top 10 favorite bands. But like, The Chariot is like, I can't find anything to like attach to. It's just noise.
I mean, it's not. Like, I mean, there it is in places, right? Like, it's not unless it is, right?
Well, it's one of those things, I think, if you actually listen, like repeated listens, you'll catch the rhythm, you'll catch the motifs and everything. But it's like, as soon as I put them on, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, and that's one of my critiques of like the modern way we consume music. Is I feel like there's so much stuff that we feel like we have to get to, because you say, oh, if you listen to it over and over and over again, well, yeah, that's what we buy records for, right?
That's
it's
true.
So that we can listen to them over and over again. I'm not perpetuating you should listen to something you hate over and over and over again until you like it. That's Stockholm syndrome, right? Like, but like for a band like The Chariot, yeah, I thought all noise, all chaos, and then I heard a song like "And Then Came Then," which the chaos breaks down and turns into something like really beautiful. So for me, dynamics are important. And so whenever you have like a heavy band, like when Killswitch Engage, I love how heavy Killswitch Engage is, but I wish that they sang a little bit less, because when they do sing, it means more. And that's kind of where I'm at with Zayo on this record. This record is so melodic in comparison to a lot of Zayo's other material. So a song like the last song from Zion, I really like the breakdown. I love the dissonance. I love the screams there. But you're right. Dan's vocal style does not lend itself very well to mid-paced chugging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't sound, because all he's doing is just yelling almost like percussively over it. But there's it's not the balls in the riffs. Yeah, there's not enough balls in the riffs for it to make sense for him to be screaming that hard over that riff.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I think you kind of hit on something there towards the beginning, and I realized something about this album, that almost every song on this album, at least from this point forward, would be a good song to close a show to.
Yeah.
I can imagine him on stage like, this is the last song from Zion and Tampa. And, and then playing the song. And
that's cute.
But thank you. I do feel like this would work really well as a closer, because it does go out, that breakdown that does come in, the 324, what I was calling machine gun bass, because it just was like this. I don't know. That's what it felt like to me. I feel like all those things would be really good to end a show on, but their shows are going to be dirty basement, 50 people. And
they're going to end with 5 Year Winter from the self-titled.
And they're going to end with somebody's teeth being kicked in, because that happened at a Zayo show that I saw.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about track 5. Live from the Funeral of God. Now, I'm sure you know that this was actually the original name of the album.
Yep.
Do you know why they had to change it? Why they had to drop the live from?
They didn't have to drop it, but they didn't want people to think that it was a live album.
Yeah, the record
Makes
label
sense.
was saying, which this was released on Ferret Records.
Okay.
Yeah, the record label said drop the live from, because people will think that it's a live record, which I could understand that, confusion there for sure. So, this one again blasts you right out the gate, just kicks the door right in.
Yeah, they don't mess around. Live from the Funeral of God. This song is one of my least favorite songs on the album, except for like the last 1 minute.
Dude, I knew you were going to say that because I really dig this one. Because, you know why? Because, okay, so the intro's cool. You're right. It kind of jumps in. But around 51 seconds, when he goes to that clean vocal and the guitar does that da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, that's pretty new. Like, to me, that's like got new metal written all over it. And so there's one other song later that I think might be my favorite. And I know you're going to hate it because it is also very melodic.
You never know.
I like the groove of this one. Like, this one has a little bit more of that, like, bounce and groove that I really like in my heavy music. So
I don't know. This was one I was feeling indifferent about because, you know, while I do like the music that this one has, I really could have used a different vocal. And I do feel like the cleans are just, and consistently throughout this, I feel like the cleans are just mixed too far back. And I didn't think about what you said about, this was his first time doing the clean vocals. And so he was lacking the confidence here. And I wonder if he requested to be mixed a little bit further back because he wasn't feeling confident. And, you know, that's just kind of what I felt in this one. I really didn't like this one up until, I don't know.
I was going to say,
like,
can we at least all agree that at 250, we all like that part? Where
the part that felt clumsy?
No, it gets all chuggy and like locked in. I dig that.
The end of this song is existentially terrifying. Like beyond music, beyond heaviness, beyond whatever. Like the fact that you've got because it starts off with just like a standard breakdown, and he's like, there's no reason to be afraid. Everything is under control. It's a little sloshy, you know, with how he does it right on the beat every time. I'm not the biggest fan of that. But as the chaos starts building, once you get into like 3:30 on that song, and it's like, you know, building up in the background, and it's just over and over again. There is no reason to be afraid. Like it's playing on a loudspeaker, but it's like the devil screaming it at you, and you can just sort of imagine the whole world burning down around you. Like they nail that vibe perfectly.
Yep. But that 250 part, it felt clumsy, and it's like they didn't know what else to put in there. But then I felt like they pulled it together towards the end of the song, but also the end of the song just kind of made me feel uncomfortable. But I feel like that's what they were going for, and so they succeeded.
And see, I'm like the opposite. Like, I like the 250 part where it's like chuggy and like real heavy. And then as it progresses, it gets so like chaotic and dissonant that it starts to lose me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you know, this one's all right.
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of indifferent on this one, and I gotta say that this is where the fatigue is starting to set in for me because, like I said before, this is not my brand of music that I listen to all the time. I do like the heavier stuff, but I don't know. I was really enjoying the beginning, and now I'm kind of, what are we doing here? So, especially the way that it started to go out on this song, it was like, what's happening? Why is this still a thing that's going on? But anyway, we got more to go. So let's talk about track 6, The Lesser Lights of Heaven.
Oh boy. I would have cut this one if I was the sequencer of the album, because again, I don't love melodic Zayo, and this song, like, I feel like it's just 4 minutes of the same thing. The lyrics are really good. Lyrics fit with the concept so well. But you know, it's too late. Like, it's, for me, yeah, it's just the whole time. And I'm just like, okay, let's change it up a little bit.
You know who it reminded me a lot of musically? Project 86.
Okay.
Maybe that's why I like this one.
I was going to say, and that's kind of why I like this one. I get what you're...
Like Truthless Heroes era, Project 86.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Even drawing black lines a little bit. It's just got that sort of, again, the big warm chords with sort of that bouncy kind of riff or bouncy rhythm. Like, I dig that a lot. I kind of get the problem with that sort of vocal delivery on top of it, because didn't really notice it until you mentioned it about the slower delivery, which, you know, you would think like you would write music to sort of complement that slower delivery, and they don't really bother with that. They just kind of like, hey, just do your thing on top of whatever song we write. And so sometimes it fits really well, sometimes it feels a little clunky, and I think this one is a good example of the music being so bouncy and melodic that vocal delivery just feels at odds with it.
Yeah. It's a little hashtag not my Zayo. You know what I mean? Like it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get that.
I think the lead line is fun on this song. You know, I don't know. I think you're right that this is a little bit more Prejudice 86. I would say it's a little more Truthless Heroes than Drawing Black Lines. Maybe I feel that way because I've listened to a lot of Prejudice 86. I mean, at one point they were my favorite band. I even like Truthless Heroes, even though that was their worst received album they put out. But I like the drums on this one, and I think it's because the drums remind me of that Truthless Heroes era. I don't know. Now that you say that, now that you make that comparison, I'm like, man, maybe this is my favorite song on the album.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's the one I would have cut.
Yeah, the one you hate the most.
That's what, because I love Project 86, but like, you know, I like Drawing Black Lines a little bit more than Truthless Heroes. I love Truthless Heroes too. I listened to that album on the way to school every morning for forever. You know, loved it. Have you heard their new stuff?
Yeah,
the new Omni stuff.
I haven't checked it out yet.
It's mind blowing. It's different.
It's not what I was expecting, because I kind of checked out of Prejudice 6 after Picket Fence Cartel.
Yeah, same.
And then their new stuff popped up somewhere, and I checked it out, and it was not what I was expecting. It's definitely worth checking out.
It's very brutal. Yeah, very like Fear Factory. Sort of heavy stuff.
Ooh,
anyway, I should have been like, we should talk about Drawing Black Lines. I don't know why I didn't say that, but anyway.
Too late.
Next time.
No,
we'll
do that
if
next
you want to
time.
come back.
All right.
Yeah. So, okay. I was not expecting the solo at 2:48. Mostly because we haven't really gotten solos on this album so far. And I don't really associate solos with this kind of music. But cool. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, Scott's a great soloist. As a matter of fact, he plays a face melting solo during the Rising End when they play it live. But he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it on the record.
I feel like bands of this genre tend to throw more solos in live than on albums. Like when I saw Lorna Shore live, I think they put a solo in every song. And after, I don't know, 4 or 5 songs, it was like, okay, guy, I know you're going to do a solo here. You're going to get up on your box. And
those songs are already like 10 minutes long, too.
Yep.
Good Lord.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I've had a note somewhere that said that this was an underrated song, but probably the most important song on the album. I didn't feel that way. But I don't know. I thought it was an interesting thing to throw it in here. But maybe it's really important to the storyline of things, but I didn't really feel like it was really the most important to the storyline. I don't know. Maybe everything's important here because it's only 11 tracks and everything matters. Everything counts.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this song's largely unnecessary to me. I think like lyrically, sure, like it's talking about like the people that were faithful, like what happens to the people that were righteous after God leaves. You know, I think that's definitely an interesting concept to explore.
Right.
But I don't know. I think its placement right after the funeral of God, like, I don't know. That song was like brutal and terrifying. And like this song is just like feel good vibes almost. And what's being talked about is so depressing that the feel good vibes are kind of at odds with it in a way. I don't know. I'm reaching too hard to criticize it, but yeah.
I get what you're saying.
It's okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's your favorite band, but criticize the album. There's no reason why you have to be like, I love this one because this is my favorite band. No, your favorite band can have a terrible album.
I think it's
this
really
is definitely
cool.
not Zayo's favorite album. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's really cool that you picked this one. Like, you picked your favorite band, but you pick sort of the bottom tier for you. And so that I think that makes this a better discussion than if it was just you were just gloating and praising.
I'm like, you guys are just wrong. Yeah, that's I might be that way about other Zayo albums, but no, not
that's
so much
cool.
This one, yeah.
All right, let's talk about track 7, In Times Gone Past.
I feel the curse inside my body.
That title doesn't flow off the tongue very well. You know, before episodes, I, go through the track listing and all, and that In Times Gone Past, that doesn't come out well. I don't know. Anyway, the bass was turned up to 11 on this track.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I don't know. I think the bass was the thing that jumped out to me most on this one. But
this is a weird ass song. I don't hate it, but it's bizarre. The way it starts, like with that crazy double kick, and then just this probably the best clean vocal I think we've heard so far. Like it feels the most confident. And then this verse comes in that if you would have given me like a multiple choice question, what do you think the verse of this song is going to sound like? What they go into would not have even been remotely on my radar, because the spoken word thing with that guitar line, those chords that he's playing are the most like bright and shimmery and happy, and the bass is kind of like pulling it down, but it just feels so weird. Like, I don't hate it. It's just like, what in the hell is happening?
I like the contrast of that.
Yeah.
First of all, I love Dan's monotone delivery. The way Dan talk, like that's how he talks. That's not like he was just doing a bit for the for the song.
It's not performative.
No,
it's not the Phil Anselmo voice.
Yeah, no, it's not. He's just like, and it's you've got bright twinkly guitars, right? That are a little bit meandery, if we're being honest.
Sure.
They clearly were written to fill the space while Dan talks, right? But it's like all bright and cheerful or whatever, but he's all like, I learned first of dying and lying in the ground. So it's like very like, and that's very like par for the course for Zayo. There's almost never a happy ending with Zayo songs. It's almost always downtrodden, as we'll get into with this album. But yeah, like I like how they build how it starts off in like sort of a slow depression and then builds up into like more of a like desperate sort of pleading kind of vibe. But yeah, it's a weird song. A lot of weird time changes, a lot of weird tempo changes, like just a lot of weird stuff being thrown at the wall. But for whatever reason, I like it. It's Scott's best vocal performance on the record. Sure. He sounds really good here. And his inclusion actually makes sense, whereas I'm not always sure that it made sense on the previous songs. I don't think it sounded bad necessarily on the previous songs, but I don't know if Breath of the Black Muse really needed a chorus at all, especially with that opening riff. But yeah, this song is weird. And this is honestly, for me, where the album starts sounding like a concept record. This is like them sort of trying to do a prog metal sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, you listening to a lot more Zayo than we have, I found where somebody said that this was almost a trademark of Zayo albums, where they have this type of a spoken word track somewhere on almost every album. And I get it because, while yes, this is weird and it's proggy, and this felt like it was very natural to them.
Yeah.
It felt like it fit. It didn't feel like they were struggling on this one. Where I do feel like they started to struggle towards the end of this one, like in the last, I don't know, maybe 30, 45 seconds of the song. And that's where I kind of felt like they should have just kind of rounded it out around 4 minutes, not carried it out to 4:33. But I kind of felt like some of these, they went for length over content.
I was going to say the same thing. That section that starts around like 3:47, I think is really cool. I just think it drags on a little too long.
Yeah.
They did that a lot on this record. Live for the Funeral God, there's a lot of that. We're just sort of like, okay, we got to end the song, but we want to. I think it was like, we want a 45-minute album because it's a concept album. But in their defense, like, it's only a 47-minute concept album. Anybody that's
it's not super long.
Dream Theater or Opeth or something, where you're
sure
they're filling up every single second of audio that they can fit on the CD, right? Like, so I think that this record, to quote Roach Coach, I think this record is relatively respectful of our time,
right?
With a little bit of extra indulgence thrown.
Yeah, but I'm okay with a short concept. I don't need it to be fleshed out. I don't need you to beat me over the head with your idea.
Fair.
But, that's fine. All right, let's talk about track 8, Praise the War Machine. Now, you had mentioned a few minutes ago that the music of this was from a different song. What was that song?
That song was called She's Not Leaving, She's Not Breathing. I have the demo for it somewhere. I'll send it to you if I can find it still on one of my hard drives, because it starts off hilarious. The music's exactly the same. Sort of the melody, the at the beginning is the same. But like Josh Ashworth is singing on it, and he's like, I found a body in the backseat of my car. It's so good. Like, I love that demo. Like, it's a crappy demo. Praise the War Machine's a way better song. When you get to this song on the record, you're like, dude, where is this banger? Why was this not closer to the beginning of the album? Because it's fast, it's immediate, it's weirdly placed between a whole bunch of like big hulking songs around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why they had to put this far back is because if they threw a song with, I'm going to try to do my best impression here, six right
Sex,
at the beginning of the album.
Sex.
Yeah. So I think that like that did catch me off guard because I wasn't expecting that to be thrown in there, and it was like I heard the first 2 sixes. I was like, wait a second, okay, there's go.
Oh, he's going for it.
I don't know, it's just kind of a fun little thing to me, and
I don't want to hear another Christian complain to me about Number of the Beast ever again, because here's a Christian band, well, sort of. Yeah. We'll get murky. Yeah,
Christian adjacent.
That year, sure. They played it. I mean, they played at Cornerstone that year.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So this one, I like the guitars again. I really like those like high pitched sort of dee like mixed in, kind of almost gives it sort of like a horror movie vibe in some of those sections. Mm-hmm. And then around 24 seconds, it goes like halftime, and you get the da 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 da, and you kind of got that like head nod again. I like all that. I think all of that's a lot of fun.
So, okay, I have the note on here that towards the bridge, we get Scott and Russ doing those high-pitched harmonics. Mm-hmm. Listening to that, I felt like Monster was going to compare that to Mr. Dimebag Darrell.
The pinch is in there, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. There's a little bit of that Dimebag flair to it. And then something else I didn't really notice until a couple times through, that whole like middle section of the song is basically the same riff played with every variation of drums and accompaniment that they could come up with. Because there's like parts where it's like real like thrashy, and then there's parts where it's like kind of halftime and grooving, but the guitar riff is predominantly the exact same throughout that whole section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This would be a perfect 3-minute song.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The last minute of this song is one of the worst musical decisions this band has ever made, because I know what they're doing. They're Dan screaming "burn" tonight, and they're building up the tension. Here's the problem, though, guys. You already did that on Live from the Funeral of God, and here you're actually doing it worse, because that song at least kept it like immediate the whole time. This one sort of just builds in dissonance and then sort of fades out and goes nowhere.
Literally,
so
it fades out.
The song goes nowhere. Yeah,
I've said on the show plenty of times that I don't like a fade out on a song because it's like, if you're fading out, you're just kind of cheating because you just couldn't come up with an ending to your song. Songs that fade out, I feel like those are the songs that are extended live. And so if they want to praise the War Machine longer live, that's fine. But I don't need you to praise it for 4 minutes, 6 seconds here.
I'm pretty sure they play it for like 2.5 minutes live.
Yeah, I would have been good with that here because this is the point where I am fatigued, and I went back to this album and listened to it starting on track 8, and I felt differently coming out of it. But it's like when I went, first to last, 1 to 11, it was every time it was at this point where I went, I don't really like the rest of this. Just my ears aren't going to hear it the same or hear it right. And it may be because of the vocals on this. I don't know. I love the vocals a lot more towards the beginning than I do at this point. All right, let's talk about track 9. Truly, truly, this is the end. Now, Monster knows that track titles that could mean something within it stick out to me. And this one lied to me because we have 2 tracks after this. This is not the last track.
I mean, sorta. Do we really have sorta 2 tracks after this?
We have like one. We have one in an intro. Let's put it that way.
We have a lot of shenanigans.
I think they're playing. I think they're playing coy here. I think so too. I think in a certain sense they're like, yeah, guys. So if you're here, if you're trying to make a record for Dan Terry, huge Zayo head, only wants to hear Zayo songs. Truly, truly, this is the end of this record.
Fair. Okay.
Fair enough.
Right. Now, support yourself on that. Why is that why is this the end to this album for you?
When I first
would you say, I was going to say, would you say this is a good representation of what you want out of Zayo?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I mean,
okay.
My other complaints aside, because like I was disappointed when I bought this album that the album was essentially over at track 9. It isn't, but like I'm here. I'll just say it. I'm here for Dan. I'm here for Dan's vocals, and I'm here for Scott's sludgy guitar playing, and sometimes his singing. And of course, I love Russ. Russ, like is the one that makes all the noise. You know what I mean? Like Russ is. You can always tell which records Russ is on because he's not on every record, but like you can tell which ones he is because of how noisy it is. Whereas Scott's more of like let's listen to Crowbar and go like very sludge metal, So that's what I'm here for. And the last 2 tracks, I don't get that.
I feel like the more you talked about that, like the more members you end up realizing that you like just as much as Dan, because it was like, I'm here for Dan.
Yeah.
Well, I like Scott. And it was like, you kind of kept going with that.
Scott, Scott's like the best guitar player. Like, is he the greatest guitar player in the world? Maybe not, but he's my favorite to listen to. I think his ideas are just, the dude's a riff machine.
And he does have some riffs all throughout this album for sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so as far as this song goes, I was in on the beginning of this one because I do like the way it ends with the tom and snare. And then with the way the guitar comes in. But then as soon as Dan's vocals started, and then we got the switch in between Dan's vocals and then like the hi-hat talking, because it was just these little breaks within it. It just felt very interrupting to me. And I had a hard time finding a place where I was, really kind of jiving with this song.
I actually think this was kind of neat as far as like my personal musical taste. I feel like if the record was a little bit more like this, where they kind of blend the screaming with the clean singing and, you've got the heavy riffs, but you got melodic moments. Like this is more my speed. I get what you're saying, but I kind of like those little breaks. And even though I don't love his voice, they say every time he does that, I like that. It kind of like cracks me up. They say, but like in a good way. But I like sort of the mix of the heavy stuff with the more melodic stuff. This one feels like we talked about on some of the other songs, a little bit sort of like they're trying to put this stuff together and it's not super seamless. This one to me feels comfortable. Like this one feels like they are blending the heavy with the melodic, and they're doing it confidently. It's funny, almost track listing wise, that this would be sort of the quote unquote last song, because, you know, it feels like this is where they finally kind of put it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. This is them. This is them doing In Times Gone Past better. Yeah, this is the second draft, I feel like, of that song, because this
I
one,
can see that.
This one, I think they actually achieved sounding epic. I think they've been chasing this epic sound the entire record. And this is finally, you know, at the end where they finally find it. And, you know, I like that they have kind of the start stop, sort of thing. It's disjointed, it's discordant, it's interrupting, you know, like you said. But I enjoy that. I enjoy this sort of unexpected, you know, part of it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not always in the mood for this type of Zayo song. Because yeah, this record does kind of I get exhausted listening to it after a while. And so usually, yeah, this is typically where I'll stop. But even though I've said that, I don't think that what comes after it is bad. It's just not what the rest of it is. You know what I mean? You've changed the channel now. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So within the concept of this album, I don't have the notes on what it is, but do you have what part of the story it is?
This is just the world ending, essentially. This is like we're at the end of time, you know?
So I did have what a lot of the songs were, and for some reason I got rid of those notes. I do have it on the next one, but I'm wondering if now, you know, kind of thinking about it within you, talking about what this song is and how much you love this song, the album ends at track 9 for you. I'm wondering if this is the climax of the story for them. Like, the world has ended, you know, like it's the big show. So it's like, I kind of feel like they knew that this was where this song would fall within this, and they didn't put as much into the last 2 tracks on this album because it was coming down from that climax. Yeah,
I think that's probably accurate. And from a sequencing perspective, like I think this is the big build. This is the climax, like you said. This is the moment on the record that sort of ties it all together. Because it's not a happy ending. You know, like he goes, it's not the same. I'm plagued with pain and I can't let go. Like, people are like, the last remnants of humanity are just dying off and they have no hope. You know what I mean? It's very dark. Like, it's very apocalyptically dark.
And you said before that Zayo does not end happy.
Never. Almost never.
It almost feels like, to me, like this is the last song for the film. And now this last section is sort of as the credits roll.
The credits, yeah.
Like, if it feels like the first little intro, the minute-long piece, is almost like the very first part of the credits when people are still kind of in their seats. Then they show you the post-credit scene where, you know, the hook you for the next record, and then the 8-minute song is sort of like the credits as everybody's walking out and they're done.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and head into that next one. So track 10, I Lay Sleepless in My Grave.
I said I like the guitar tone.
Yeah. Well, look at the track times. As soon as I saw that this one was just 1 minute, 32 seconds, I was like, it's an interlude that got out of hand. It's an interlude that became a problem.
Yeah. I don't know why it's even there, to be honest with you.
I feel like it's there to give you a break from what track 9 was before we go into the 8-minute epic to close this album out.
Yeah.
Because it is just kind of a clean, nice little guitar piece.
To your point, I don't really feel like it needs to be here. I also feel like you could have incorporated it into the last song and just made the last song just this epic ass 10-minute long thing. I don't know. This does feel it feels very weird to have a 1-minute song followed by an 8-minute song. Like, that feels very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But I do know that humanity is spiritually dead at this point in the story. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But you know, once I read that, you know, part of that's what this part of the story is. It was like, okay, I get that. You know, the world has ended. People are spiritually dead. Okay, cool. Now we go into track 11. Psalm of the City of the Dead. Now, why? Okay, you said the album ends at track 9. What about track 11 doesn't work for you?
Well, first of all, you have to look at this from the perspective of somebody that was really, really into Zayo for a couple of years before this record came out. And so I'm listening to this record and I see this giant 8-minute song. And that song sounds like it's building and building and building and building and building. And you can only assume that it's going to build into this super epic, brutal, moment. And it just doesn't. So it's like, it was a real mixed bag. Like, what does Dan Terry in 2026 think of this song? I think it's beautiful. I think it's great to listen to. I love the progression. I think it meanders a little bit in places. It does sound a bit like a Zayo's jam session, but I think overall it's a very enjoyable, sad sounding song. I just don't know where it fits in with the rest of the record.
No, especially since we get a very different vocal within this.
Yeah.
And now I feel like this song should have ended at 3:53. I feel like that's where it should have just come to a close. But then I feel like we come back for a second round of the song where we do get more fleshed out. And so going off of the analogy of a film that you were talking about, I feel like 3:53 is where the film ended and the credits started to roll after that. And I'm cool with that because we still have, 5 minutes of the song to go, and that's fine. But getting the female vocals in here, I do feel like definitely gave us a different feeling within this Zayo song, or the entire Zayo sound. Especially what she's saying, where she says, these streets aren't paved with gold. You're my everything. My soul is growing cold.
These streets aren't paved with gold. You're my everything. My soul is growing cold.
And I read that, went, I'm sad now.
Yeah.
Again, not being familiar with Zayo very much, I was listening to this record like the first time through, and I saw 8 minutes and immediately was like, oh God, no, please. Like, what's going to happen? And then it starts and I'm like, okay, I get why this is the closer. It's Zayo, but it's a little slower and, and then that 3:55 section hits and I was like, I didn't know they had this in their repertoire. These weird jazz chords and, playing these little off-kilter progression there. And I thought it was, and like you said, the female vocal, all that's really nice. Like, it's really different. And my personal taste, I love that. So I didn't want it to go back into the heavy stuff at 5:01. I was almost disappointed when it did that. I would have preferred them to just stay on the soft, sweet thing and end somewhere in that realm. I get why they would go back to something heavier, and they incorporate the piano to kind of keep it melodic and everything. So it's a neat move. Like you said, man, I don't like 8-9 minute long songs, and especially when it kind of meanders like this does. I thought the jazzy section was a nice touch, but yeah, this is the kind of song that I don't tend to revisit unless I have to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not in the regular rotation. I'm not like looking forward to this one. I get my mosh in, up until track 9 and I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got the full Funeral of God experience, for the most part.
And that's a nice 30-minute ride. Like that's a nice amount. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a good car ride. And
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. By the time this one came on, I was kind of at my fatigue when, listening from beginning to end. And so when that 3:53, 3:55 section happened, I was like, I'm kind of done. I'm done with all this. I do like the change up of the melodic and the female vocal with the piano and all. I do think that was a good change in sound because I needed a change. But the vocals were a struggle for me on this album, but not for the first chunk of the album. But as it went on, it was, okay, I need something different within this. And then we got something very different at the end. And so I had very mixed emotions about track 11. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I wanted this the whole time. But at the same point, I didn't really want this one, because it was 8 minutes.
Yep.
Anyway, Monster, let me ask you a question. What's new with you?
Hey, good looking. What you got? Cooking.
That's a good question. I think if I had to pick one, I feel like The Lesser Lights of Heaven is the most like consistently new metal, because the whole song kind of has that kind of bounce and groove. There's a couple of those kind of moments, but like I said, it was giving me sort of Project 86 vibes, which they're not necessarily a new metal band, but they were kind of like new adjacent. Like, I mean, I saw them on tour with Head P, Linkin Park, and POD. So, I mean, it's like, if you're on tour with those bands, you got to be at least semi-new, so I'm going to go with The Lesser Lights of Heaven. And Danger, what's cooking?
This really wasn't the best album to cook to in general, but I do feel like it did have a few points where it did kind of dive in, and I felt like in times gone past. Actually was probably the most decent song to cook to here. So, okay. Now, what is the best song to listen to in a dungeon?
Well, in my dungeon, I'm going to go with Live from the Funeral of God. Specifically the last part of it, where the entire world is ending around you and you're sheltering in place in your dungeon, holding on to all of your CDs before the world ends and you lose everything that you love.
I love that your analogy is holding on to everything that you love. Is it your wife, your kids, your family? No, it's my CDs.
My CDs, bro. Like, yeah. People they're just going to find me one day under a pile of these CDs. Like, yeah.
No, I get it. As a person
awesome.
with a healthy physical media collection myself, I'm proud I own some CDs, and I'm not proud that I even have ever listened to some of those CDs. But even the ones I don't like at all, it's like, no, those are my things, and I like them because they were a part of the journey. And,
exactly.
I don't know. Opening a CD just had a feeling to it, a smell to it. Taking that cellophane off, which is good.
And actually, I meant to mention this earlier when you were talking about, listening to stuff over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, you would spend $10, $12, $15, $20 on a CD. If you didn't like it immediately, you didn't just throw it out. You listened to it repeatedly because you spent money on it. So you wanted to get something out of it. Even if you don't love it, you find some songs, you find something in there to make it worth your money. Now everything's on streaming and Spotify and YouTube. It's like, if it doesn't immediately grab you, it's like, well, what's the point of diving any deeper? You don't have any skin in the game anymore. Like,
you miss the nuance.
Yes.
Is what you miss. You miss the nuance. A lot of the times you miss the context, of where it's at. I call it the mushroom head effect, because I'm kind of a nutcase about Mushroom Head. I've got like all their stuff. I love Mushroom Head. And the very first time I heard their album Double X, I like turned it off and gave it back to my buddy. I was like, this is the worst crap I've ever heard in my life. Why in the world would anybody? And there's still times where I think that's probably true, but I still like it. You know what I mean? I still really enjoy the keyboards and the weird rapping and the we have Mike Patton at home style vocals. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I like it. I really enjoy it. And it's because I had it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel as busy back in the day as I feel now. Like I got to just cram as much stuff as possible into every single minute of every day.
Yep. That's awesome. Yep.
All right. Monster, would you like to give us your closing statement here?
Sure. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, as a fan of bands like Living Sacrifice and The Showdown, Zao was always on my radar, but I never really listened to them. I think I heard a song or two and it didn't really appeal to me. Listening to it now so intently for the show, I ended up liking this way more than I thought I would. I still don't love the vocals, and there's some parts where I feel like the production is just a little too thin, and I feel like some of the songs go on a little bit too long. But with that being said, I like a lot of the riffs, and there's a lot more dynamics than I initially thought there was going to be. While probably nothing I intend to come back to right away, I enjoyed diving into it, and it was better than I anticipated. 1 to 10, I said 6.14. Now, I don't know which one of y'all wants to go next. We kind of have this like deal where we sort of like who's ever on the bottom usually goes first. So we end on a positive note, like the person that gives it a higher score will go next.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm probably in the middle. I have a feeling Danger's going to be lower than me and you're going to be higher, but I could be wrong.
I am going to be lower.
Okay,
So
then why don't you go ahead and then we'll have our esteemed guest, close it out for us.
all right. Have you ever been described as esteemed?
Never.
I've been steamed.
Like steamed hams?
Yes, steamed hams.
I've been steamed, but I've never been called esteemed.
Growing up in the church in the 90s and early 2000s, Tooth and Nail was not just a record label, it was a place of safe reference. So when Tooth and Nail started putting out Zayo in 1997, I jumped on board. My parents could hate the way they sounded, but they had no grounds to stand on when telling me not to listen to it. Zayo had 2 Tooth and Nail albums I listened to because that is what I had to listen to, and I wanted to listen to the angry sounds of Zayo. Fast forward to 2026, I'm 40 and I get tired a lot faster. I get it. This isn't just a collection of songs, it's a full narrative. It's a concept album. Not all songs in a concept album work without the tracks before or after. For me, I'm not sure a lot after track 3 works on this album in general. It's less about rebellion and more about the absence. It's about the struggle. I like that a Christian adjacent band is telling its listeners that it's okay to struggle and to have questions. I can get behind the message. I can get behind much of the music here, but I will always have trouble getting behind the kind of vocals that how'd you pronounce his name?
Wyant.
But I will always have trouble getting behind the kind of vocals that Mr. Wyant does. I like the growl and I like a scream, just not for 47 minutes. I've said it before, when things are heavy all the time, things are not heavy any of the time. I gave this a 4.87.
All right.
Now, are you esteemed or steamed? What are
esteemed, maybe? A-steamed? No, B-steamed. I'm B-steamed.
Lightly steamed.
Lightly steamed. No, I mean, I don't have a written statement,
no,
you're
that's fine.
But I'm not nearly as good off the cuff as I used to be. But
Cuff it.
yeah, I think Funeral of God's a really interesting turning point for Zayo because it was a really strong return after a period of uncertainty. And they threw a lot of stuff at the wall on the Funeral of God, experimenting more with clean vocals, experimenting with a little bit more of a traditional song structure than we're used to with Zayo. There's a little bit more of a verse, chorus, verse here. And they incorporate a lot more like melodic and progressive elements into their sound. I don't necessarily think they do any of it super well here, but almost everything on this album, the band would go on to do much better in later releases. And so I think because of how important it is to their evolution as a band, I would give this record a 6.5 out of 10.
Nice. We're all kind of like relatively in the ballpark. I mean, Danger, you're too low, but other than that, everything's about right.
Yeah.
I am where I am. So before I give the final score, do you have anything that you would like to plug? Anything you want to talk about yourself?
I mean, yeah, I have a YouTube channel called DFT's Dungeon. I've been focusing for the past year more on Christian music than not. People seem to like it, so that's kind of what I'm sticking with right now. So yeah, I do have a video coming up that is talking about, well, 2 videos. I'll tell you guys. Okay. So my next video I'm working on is going to be female-fronted Christian metal bands with a specific focus on growly, screamy female vocalists. And then
not a lot of those in the Christian scene, so that's cool.
Yeah. There's more than you think, which don't worry, I'll tell you all about them. But
I can't wait.
Yeah, but the other video I'm working on is the Christian new metal video. So I'm gonna bring all the bands up, all of them.
Let me know if you need help on that one. I'd love to help you.
Sure. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. So yeah, DFT's Dungeon on YouTube. I would love for you to stop by and check it out sometime.
All right. So, Monster gave Zayo's Funeral, The Funeral of God, a 6.14. I gave it a 4.87, and Daniel gave it a 6.5, which gives it an overall average of 5.83 with a repeating 6, putting it into the 85th position, just above the Bunny the Bear and just below Eve 6.
Wait, so you're saying that like at the end of this number, it's just 6. 6. Yeah, okay.
How metal.
Yeah, let's go.
I would love to see Zayo and Eve 6 play together. That would be a wonderful time.
You might
I
choke
think it'd
on
be
the
fun,
rinds,
but yeah, I think it'd be fun, but they wouldn't go together at all.
Choke on the ride.
So, if you disagree with the score that we have given this album, then please send us an email at breakdownsbreakfast@gmail.com or head on over to one of our social media platforms, Facebook, X, or Instagram, and let us know what you thought about this episode, or if there's an album that you'd like for us to give the Breakdowns treatment to in the future.
And big shout out to our buddy Daniel Terry. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. It was a lot of fun. Hope to maybe get you on another time and talk about some more stuff. I like to end our shows with something real important that we can carry into our lives, you know, moving forward. So I'm going to give you this one. Why did the drummer complain about his salad?
Why?
Didn't have any beats. I love how upset you looked. Thank you for that.
man. I mean, I'm a father of 4, but that was rough. Yeah.